Hello, everyone. Welcome to this webinar organized by Altair Global, which will focus on political developments in Europe and their anticipated impacts on talent mobility. My name is Magali Bessard, and I'm in charge of business development at Altair. And I'm delighted to welcome today's expert, Virginie Le Baler, CEO of Oui Immigration. Hello, Virginie.
Hello.
Could you please introduce the topic we'll be discussing today?
Yes, sure. Very happy to be part of this webinar today. So the idea is really to be talking about what's happening in Europe in terms of political changes at the moment and the impact it may have on your qualified immigration. Since, as you know, immigration is a very political topic. And obviously, when immigration changes, it has impact on politics and vice versa. So we're going to see exactly what could be the impact, especially in Europe, because you may have seen that it's not a European trend. It's happening in Canada at the moment, which is really closing a bit the borders. It's happening in many countries, but we're going to focus today on Europe. Don't know if you heard, but there's been a summit in October in Europe that was where 27 member states presidents were attending and mainly focused on immigration. So basically illegal immigration, but still it's a very strong symbol because in the end, the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen decided to provide to create a new law to facilitate sending the migrants away when they're not in a regular situation. So all of that is very symbolic and concrete at the same time and shows basically what Europe is going towards, which is really strengthening the immigration laws and borders. Just a few numbers here. So we're talking here again about illegal immigration mainly, but there's been in 2023 the highest rise in illegal immigration in Europe, rising to up to 1.15 million last year. And the irregular entries in the EU have reached a number of 380,000 people. Obviously, they're not regulated, so it may be more. But again, this is all to explain that Europe is trying to control that as much as it can.
Yeah, and would you remind us the basic principles of immigration in EU?
Yeah, sure. Because obviously it's linked to all of that, and the measures that are going to be taken in the coming days, months, are really based on European Union basic principles, which are obviously freedom of movement, worker protection, common authorities such as the European Commission, the European Parliament, and the law courts of the EU. So that's obviously for EU citizens, allowing you, when you're a French citizen, to go and work in Italy or Germany, for instance. You still have to do immigration things now, specifically the A1 in terms of social security and a secondment certificate. But that's something a bit more precise we'll see a bit later. So the whole idea is for the European Union to protect his own citizens in terms of work as well, to avoid work dumping situations like we've had in the previous years. But what is important and what can be interesting to notice is that there's the EU law and there's the national law, and the idea when EU creates a new law is that each country has a certain amount of time to transcript it into its national law, and depending on the country, it can take some time. So if the country doesn't do it on time, they get fined. But the impact is that if I take the example of the European blue card, some countries took some more time than others to put it in practice because they were using still their own highly qualified immigration process. They were favoring the national law rather than the EU law, which means that the idea is for Europe to harmonize everything, but concretely, it's not really. So one country is not going to use an immigration concept the way another is going to use it. Obviously, it's not going to be the same salary because that depends on the minimal salary of each country. But the way they put it concretely in application can change from one country to the other. So, for instance, France and Germany, we've been using the European Blue Card for a very long time. It's one of the most popular immigration routes. Whereas Italy, for example, has started to use it maybe for the last 2-3 years only. So that makes differences in the European immigration instead of fully harmonizing it. But again, the whole idea is for Europe to protect its citizens. So you've probably heard about it. We've got some measures that have been or are going to be put in application. There's the EES, which is the entry-exit system. Exit system. It was scheduled for November 2024, but in the end, it was postponed to 2025. The idea is really to, instead of getting a stamp on your passport, now when you enter a European country, it's all going to be biometrics. So they're going to take your fingerprints or your eyes biometric prints. And obviously, the idea is to make sure that it's much more controlled and better controlled in terms of security and safety. So that's going to be for 25. Probably like the ETIAS, which is the European Travel and Information System. Again, we've been talking about that since 2021 or something like that, and it's always been postponed. And usually it's because the countries do not have the workforce to implement it. So the ETIAS is more or less similar to the US ESTA or Australian ETA. It's not a visa, it's a travel authorization that you have to fill in before you travel, in that case, to a Schengen country. So that's going to be hopefully applied in 2025, if it's not postponed again. Then
Okay.
in May sorry, tell me.
No, it's okay.
No. Then in May 2024, there was the Asylum and Migration Pact that was voted by almost all the Schengen member states to control and make the controls much stronger, especially in terms of illegal immigration, and create a kind of solidarity system between each country when they have to expel illegal migrants. And very recently, Germany, the Netherlands, and France have reinstated the border controls. So that's, again, a very symbolic and very concrete measure, because for the border controls, that is something that each country needs to ask to European institutions. They can't decide from one day to the other, okay, I'm going to block my borders or put a control border again. I need to ask the European Commission or any other EU authority, and then they get the authorization to do so. So Germany has done so, France has done so, and it's been pronounced until next April for France. And basically the reason to do so is that there are security threats for the country that decides to put it in application again. So again, it's a very strong measure, and it's something that European countries have been using more and more, because there are more and more threats in terms of security lately.
Okay. Okay. Well, look, I suggest we look deeper per country, okay, at the immigration policies. So, what about France, for example?
So France did a huge, I mean, it's not that huge, but there was a new immigration law in 2024, but it was huge in terms of medias and political impact. Obviously, so I'm not going to go into details into it, but it was very huge in terms of trend. But concretely for corporate immigration, which is the one that mainly interests us today, there were four main measures that were taken. One for jobs where people are needed because there's no workforce in France. That hasn't really been put in action until now. So we're still waiting to see if it's given results or not. The controls and fines towards employers that do not comply with the French immigration law have been raised. And that's a great thing because obviously it's something that employers must always keep in mind. Immigration, make sure the person has the right documents to work and not hire anyone just like that without complying with employers' obligations. So now in France, if you hire someone that's not authorized to work, the fine is 30,000 euros per foreign worker. Also, the last one of the last measures was for entrepreneurs to have the right work permit. Before that, it was a bit of a gray zone. Now it's very clear that they need to have a document authorizing them to create a company and work through it in France. And the last measure that was actually probably the most interesting in terms of corporate immigration was the talent passport for medical professions. So for nurses, doctors coming from abroad, and that we need a lot in France. I guess it's the same in other countries. But this measure, which was again one of the most expected, has not been put in instance yet. So we're still waiting for news. And again, if we focus on France, the political speech is very clear at the moment. Don't know if you've heard about it because before, but the extreme right was very close to winning this year in France. So the prime minister that we have now has very clearly expressed the will to take the votes in account, to hear the people's voice, and to make sure that immigration is going to be strengthened to a very strict extent. So we're probably going to have another immigration law in 2025. Of course, Altair and I will keep you posted on that.
Yeah. Thank you. What about Italy?
Sorry. So Italy, obviously, you all know that Giorgia Meloni doesn't hide her political ideas and make sure they're applicated very strongly. She's the one who launched the concept of externalized detention centers. Basically, when you have illegal migrants in your country, you don't keep them in your country, you send them to another country with which you have an agreement. So she's put that in place. She's being very strong on immigration, but now the situation is turning around because Italy is lacking workforce. So they're probably going to have to adapt to what's the reality of the work market in the country.
Yeah. And what about Germany?
So Germany, as I was saying, they at the moment they're controlling their borders again, and the government, German government, is very clear about the fact that they cannot handle more immigration. They've been very straightforward about it. For the first 7 months of 2024, they've received So 50,000 illegal arrivals. And last year, the asylum requests have raised by 51%, which is obviously huge for any country. So again, it's illegal immigration, but it still has an impact on corporate immigration. That's why I'm giving all these numbers. So now they're working on a legal text. The German government is working on it to make sure that people are being expelled in an easier way, and that any asylum requester that entered through another country will not have access to social help in Germany. So again, they're strengthening illegal immigration controls.
Yeah. What about Belgium? Is it the same trends?
Same trend for Belgium, following the route like the other countries. So which means making sure the asylum requests are much more controlled and tougher to go through. And that if you get a negative answer to your asylum request, you're being sent out of Belgium, out of the Schengen area, and not able to come back to the Schengen area. So that's, again, something that is feasible in terms of EU law, but that is obviously very heavy in terms of consequence for the person that is impacted. And just for your information, because I've got the information. So in November 2024, Belgium was became the country with the lowest employment rate for foreigners, and the second lowest in terms of hiring immigrants in the OECD. FYI, the UK is the first country hiring foreign employees in this bubble, with 747,000 legal arrivals in 2023.
Right. Okay, so that's for the UK. Do you have any other focus to share about the United Kingdom?
Yes, speaking about the UK, so UK has in itself a quite complex immigration system with many different work permits and the obligation for employers to have a sponsorship license when they want to hire foreign citizens. So that's already making it a bit tricky and expensive, because what UK did, in my opinion, I mean, they changed many things in terms of immigration, small and bigger things, but there are news about UK immigration changes almost every week. For me, what they did is really raising the governmental fees. So what you have to pay when you hire a foreign citizen, or when you want him to have a visa, work permit, and so on and so on, the fees are quite high. They're much higher than in any other country of Europe. Obviously, UK is not Europe anymore, but speaking about that part of the world, the fees are really high. So that's already a way to discourage people that are not motivated or rich enough or skilled enough to come to the UK. So that's another way to do it, in my opinion. And you may have heard that UK is also launching a type of travel authorization, which is called the ETA, Electronic Travel Authorization. So they've already launched it for certain nationalities, but it's going to be for everyone coming to the UK starting April 2025. So that needs to be remembered before you take the Eurostar or fly to the UK now.
Okay. And you wanted also to highlight some special immigration management in the Netherlands, Hungary, and Poland?
Yes, again, in that political state of mind of making it more difficult to arrive in the Schengen area, the Netherlands, Hungary, and Poland are working on a law that would allow them to suspend the asylum rights to better manage the immigration flows. So that's, again, a very strong measure that they're working on together. And they've worked as well together with Italy about the retention center I was telling you about. On the other hand, we have Sweden, which takes the problem in a different way, because they've decided to help financially the countries where the immigration comes from, to make sure the problem is dealt with at the roots. So they've prepared an envelope of 263 million euros, and it's been voted, so it should be put in application in the coming month. So obviously that's another way of seeing things, and hopefully it's going to be a success and an example for other countries in the world.
Sure. Well, are there some positive initiatives in Europe you would like to explain us?
Yes, exactly. We thought with Magali it would be great as well to balance the whole very negative atmosphere at the moment in Europe with great measures that are being taken by some countries to attract talents in Europe. So there's the Germany Opportunity Card and the Austria's Red White Card. They're a bit the same system. Basically, they used a points system based on the applicant's skills, experience, and strength. So the person does not have to have a work contract before arriving. She needs to make sure she's got enough points, and then she can arrive in these countries, look for a job, and then hopefully turn it into something more, something longer, because these two cards are usually released for 1 to 2 years maximum. Yep. But it's a great thing. Slovenia removed the labor market testing restrictions, which makes the immigration much smoother. Estonia did the same by streamlining all the immigration processes. So it's now a very attractive country in terms of immigration, because it's quite easy to obtain a work permit there. Lithuania launched the talent program for talents, specializing in life science and engineering. So that's working quite well as well. And in Spain, especially in Barcelona, they've created tech hubs where big countries like AstraZeneca, Lufthansa, and so on meet and create initiatives to help the expatriates in terms of relocation, integrations, and so on and so on. And a great initiative that was launched by the European Union in 2023 is the EU Talent Pool that you can access on the web. And it's basically a platform which connects non-EU talents with EU employers. It's focusing as well on healthcare, IT, engineering, and so on and so on. But it's a great way of finding talents or finding jobs, and it makes immigration a bit more easier, because it helps the talent with his diploma recognition if it's required. So it's a great initiative, and I thought it would be interesting to talk about it.
Yes,
today.
It is. It's not well known, so thank you for adding that. And shall we say that Europe is still attractive for mobility of talents?
Yes. According to the INSEAD 2023 study on global talent competitiveness, we can say that Europe is still attractive. So the INSEAD is one of the best business school in the world. It's based next to Paris, and they release that document each year. So for 2023, top 3 is Swiss, Singapore, and the US. But then in the top 25, you still have 27 European countries following. So no drama here. Europe is still competitive, is still attracting talents. And again, Europe is, I was going to say just or simply, but it's not the right word, but is following the trend, the global trend of protection and encouraging internal resources. So it's not something specific to Europe. So it's still a great place to come. And just for your information, the the other countries that attract a lot of people, a lot of talents are Australia, Canada, New Zealand, the UAE, South Korea, and Israel. And France is number 19 in the list.
Very good. So these are positive signs. Thank you. So what do you think, what would be the concrete impacts that we should expect on talent mobility with this immigration?
Yeah, now it's time to finally answer the question. So what are going to be the impacts on your qualified immigration? In the end, and that's really my personal opinion of immigration experts, what we've seen today, what we're seeing now is again very focused on illegal immigration. Skilled or talent immigration, however you call it, may be impacted by the collateral effects of these stricter policies, because that means overburdened authorities, so longer processing times, checks, control, immigration control, that may be stricter and more recurrent. But I don't think that as long as the person you want to hire as a company has the skills, the experience, the salary, and all the conditions are met, there's no reason for a country to reject the application. There's no reason for any political movement or any country to believe or make believe that this kind of immigration is not required. Because if immigration was not required in any countries, we would know it now. So technically, I don't see any very strong impacts on your skilled immigration. But yeah, it's probably going to suffer of collateral effects that you may be that it may be interesting to anticipate, and that's probably the next point we can discuss.
Yeah, exactly. Just on a company point of view, what they should monitor.
So obviously, these are very common things that you've probably already heard 1,000 times, but it's really important for us immigration experts to keep on repeating it, because we still see companies, big groups that do not manage the immigration clearly or efficiently, and are really taking risks. So risks that can be legal, financial, reputational, or human, obviously, for the company, for the person that is for the talent, for the person that is being in the midst of immigration problems. So it's really important to stay informed about the immigration updates. And there are many of them, but when there are big measures, usually it's not only on the immigration websites, it's in the news. So it's important to take that into account. It's important to make sure that that the theory becomes very concrete in your global mobility teams or immigration internal teams, operational teams, to make sure that you're protected as an employer, and that the person you're wanting to send to your country or have into your country is protected as well. Because the risks are really too high not to be compliant with immigration law. Again, the companies we work with and that we see are really compliant are the ones who got inspected, who got controls, who got huge problems, and that's when they decide to be compliant. And it's a shame not to anticipate it enough and not to understand that it's not something you can avoid if you're working with international talents. And immigration, we've seen it in the last minutes. It's always been a complex matter. Now it's becoming more and more linked to politics, linked to what's happening in the world. So it has to be linked to the way you hire and the way you see the international recruitment in your company. And I would focus, because that's what authorities focus on business trips. again, that's something we hear all the time, and we completely understand it. It's difficult to monitor all the business trips of all your employees, but the risks are really high because business trips are something authorities focus on because they know that there's a lot of abuses on that kind of trips. So it's really important to define what's a business trip. Is the person going to work or not? If she's going to work, it's not a business trip anymore, and she's going to need something. If she's just going to meet colleagues or attend a conference and so on and so on, what's her nationality? Does she need a visa for that destination or not? How do I manage it? How do I process it? And how do I make sure it's controlled at the maximum? Intra-European assignments, that's everything related to secondments. Again, that's a topic authorities love to focus on, and it's been like that for the last 5-10 years, so it's pretty new. But secondments intra-Europe are very, again, they focus a lot on that. So you need to make sure that you've understood how it works, what is required, whether it's a A1 for Social Security or a secondment certificate. Sometimes it just sounds obvious that you're not going to need anything if you go and work for 2 weeks in Germany, in Spain, but actually you may need something. So it's really important to check with your immigration experts what needs to be done and what's the timeline of it. And the last point would be the travel within the Schengen area. Quick reminder here on the Schengen law that we call the 90 days Schengen law. But as a reminder, any non-Schengen person has the rights, and when she does not need a visa, if it's a person that enters the Schengen area as a non-visa citizen, let's say, benefiting from the visa waiver agreement, she can stay 90 days maximum, and then she needs to leave the Schengen area 90 days. And that's going to happen twice in the same year. So it's 90 days in, 90 days out, 90 days in, 19 days out on the whole year. And that's very important to know and to put in application, because if you don't follow that rule, you may receive a nice overstay stamp on your passport, which is going to make everything more difficult when you apply for a visa, when you want to come back to the Schengen area. And given that within a few months, we're going to have this entry-exit system put in place, you won't be able to not take care of it anymore. So that's something that really needs to be monitored even more in the coming month.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And as a conclusion, what would be your recommendation for global mobility teams?
So again, I know global mobility teams have a lot to think of, many things to deal with when there's a mobility. But again, stay up to date with the immigration news and educate and communicate within the HR global mobility operational teams to make sure the information is known, understood, and shared. And yes, that's basically everything I use. So as usual, compliance, anticipation, and keep in mind that immigration is not an easy topic, and that it's getting less easy now with what's happening in Europe and in the world.
Yeah, you're right. Well, thank you very much, Virginie, for this conversation and all the information you've shared. Thank you for listening. And if you have any question, feel free to reach out. We'll be really happy to help you. See you soon.
Bye-bye.